to the second episode of the Reserve Squad. Today we have our full panel with us. We have our future full pundits, as we could maybe call it, with Tyler and Andy here, and then of course we got Frankie as well. So let's get into it with some intros. Let you guys get to know these guys a little bit, and then we're gonna move right into our topics. So go ahead and start, Tyler.
Awesome. Yep. So first of all, thanks for having Andy and I join. This is really cool. I'm really excited. I have always wanted to do podcast things, so this is going to be a real cool opportunity and a lot of fun together with all three of you guys. When it comes to soccer, I guess where it all started for me, I was kind of played as a young lad, I guess. I was, I think, 4 years old when I started. And then when I got to be about 10 years old, I switched to some other sports, tried some other things, was out of it for those crucial development years, but got back into it in high school, and played a little bit there and, did the intramural thing in college. Nothing too crazy to say about player. I don't have a crazy semi-professional story like Francis over there. But when I really got into the game was as a fan, and it was the 2006 World Cup for me. I remember it vividly. That was the one where Italy won in the crazy game with Zidane's headbutt. It was in Germany, and it was the first time that I was really able to watch an entire World Cup as a whole and really get a feeling for what the culture is like in soccer. And the thing that was most interesting that I found about it, that stood out above all sports, that made it so beautiful and something that I could get passionate about, was the difference in cultures between all the different teams, right? I mean, you got Spain with their tiki-tac revolutionary offense, and then you had Germany's physicality, Brazilian flair, the Italian defense. I don't think I ever saw Buffon take a long goal kick in my entire life. And I thought that was really cool to see the difference in culture and the way that each team, not only on an international level, but as I learned at the club level too, kind of has their own art. And as much as most other sports are a chess match with X's and O's, like how we have with American football, soccer not only has that chess, but it also has the art and the creativity behind it. And that's something that I really got behind. And, fast forward to today, I am an avid, diehard Bayern Munich fan. I watch pretty consistently both the Bundesliga and the English Premier League. So a lot of my Saturdays flips back and forth between those two. And when it comes to the Premier League specifically, I am pretty neutral. The only team I will make most of a comment about is Manchester City. I root for anybody but Manchester City. They are that team. I don't know if you ever meet someone and you just instantly don't like them for no reason. That's how I feel about Manchester City. So as long as whoever deserves to really wins it, and Manchester City loses, I'm a happy camper. So that's pretty much my background and where my opinions are going to spark from as we move forward. And I look forward to it. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Andy? Give us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I actually started as a baseball fan. And then it was actually the 2006 World Cup, as a bunch of my buddies were soccer fans, and that was kind of the first experience that I had really watching it on a global level. I was a big fan of Wayne Rooney in the English squad at the time, and so following that World Cup, I needed to find a team, and one of my good buddies is a Chelsea fan. Frankie was a Liverpool fan, and I was like, I cannot be on the same team as my friends. I have to choose someone different. So I went with Manchester United since Wayne Rooney was on the English squad, and I've been a United fan ever since. So Tyler, I share your sentiment about City, but I'm a big fan of the Premier League. I've been watching heavily since 2007. I played soccer a little bit myself, started off in the recreational leagues, played a little bit of competitive, played high school, and I practiced a little bit with the FGCU soccer team, but I was never really on like the starting roster or anything like that. Mostly just did it to keep in shape. But I've been a big soccer follower ever since that 2006 World Cup, and I'm looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad we're all here. Let's touch a little bit on Black Lives Matter and the NHS and what the Premier League done, the Bundesliga. All soccer across the globe has kind of taken a step in the not only the right direction, but probably the most progressive direction, you could say, during the matter of, because they're corporations. At the end of the day, they are businesses. So you got to look at them just like a Macy's, right? So I think it's important to not only acknowledge and applaud what they're doing, But when you look at the Premier League, you have Black Lives Matter on the back of the shirts. You have NHS on there for the health services and everything going on with the pandemic, which is the only thing that would have been talked about if it wasn't for the protests and kind of everything coming to light and all the onion layers being peeled back on how Black people are being treated across the globe. So I think it's important, and people should be talking about it. My take is I think that the Bundesliga started off the right way because they were on first, and then Premier League kind of piggybacked, and they said, "How can we make this better? Let's put Black Lives Matter on the back of the first 12 games on their kits. Let's take a stand. We're going to do the same thing. Moment of silence. Let's let people express themselves." So I really like what they're doing. I think my take before I move on is that American sports can only do more, because if you want to look and say, where's the biggest problem lying? If you're going to look, you got to look in the mirror, and it's happening in our backyard. So what are we going to do about it? I can't wait to see. You got the NFL apologizing left and right, so we'll see where it goes with American sports, but I think they need to do more than what the British and European corporations are doing, to be quite honest. We'll see. Frankie, you got a take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you're saying. They had to make a statement, and I think they're doing the right thing. A lot of the players too have been very public in their feelings about the whole movement, and they're getting a lot of following. I mean, I'm sure most people have seen what Marcus Rashford has done in this time, and we need more players to be role models just like that, because the whole thing for me about sports is it's everything that you wanted to be when you were a kid. You're out there, you're living the dream, and they need to be better at setting those examples, and players just like Rashford are doing exactly what they need to do. So hopefully we see more like that.
Definitely, and Ben Mee from Burnley as well, taking a stand up. Really appreciate what he did. So I think you're right. It's good to see. Marcus Rashford really did a good thing there with, what was it? I believe it was kids with meals, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're a United guy, Andy. You got a take on what he's doing and all of it going on?
Yeah, I mean, Rashford's always been pretty well connected with the community, and he's always been one to use his platform for positivity and bringing light to issues and, taking a stand on things, which I think is fantastic. Obviously, I'm a Man United fan thick and through, so I definitely love the movement. Definitely love that he's, taking an active approach against this. And just in the Black Lives Matter movement itself, I mean, I think the Premier League is taking a really good stance against it, and right now they're kind of the golden standard for, taking a stance, as well as with the NHS, having their publicly funded healthcare system. It's doing wonders for them over in England with COVID, and not just England, but the rest of the neighboring countries too that also have this. I think it's a great movement, and I think that it's definitely paving the way for other companies and other leagues to do the same thing.
Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to add to what you guys have already said, to be honest. I think it's interesting, Cam, you pointed out that the Bundesliga was the first. I think they did kind of set the example as far as to what to do moving forward in Europe in general. Has opened up many other sports, which opens up many other platforms, right? Here in the States, once we get all of the rest of our sports running, I think right now the only one is really NASCAR. And other than that, we're going to look forward to, NFL, NBA is going to be a big one, and even the NHL and MLS as they get going too, and as well as baseball.
Yeah.
I think as those sports determine what their procedures are around COVID, I think it's going to open up many other platforms to see how things move forward, and we'll just kind of have to pay attention to it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is see what's going on as we move forward with all of this together.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you put up a good point with NASCAR. It's crazy. The most conservative sport fan base in the United States is taking a very progressive stance on the matter, absolutely shaking their fan base. So, I think it's a good thing to see right off the rip, because that means the other leagues only have to do more. And so let's see what they do. But we have big things to talk about in the Premier League world. 30-year wait, Premier League title winners, Liverpool. You never walk alone.
You're alone in this chat, buddy.
That's fine. I'm not alone in England. I know that.
Yeah. So right now, Frankie, what did you cry? Give us some raw. What happened?
No actual tears were shed. I mean, with the spread that we had, it was pretty much inevitable, but it doesn't take away from the sweetness of being crowned champions. It's their first Premier League championship, but going back in history, they've won other titles before it was called the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I think some people forget about that, but still a 30-year wait to get the first title for a big top six club in England is still bittersweet. But we have the club to keep going forward, get some more trophies, and with Klopp behind the wheel, we can do anything really.
Guy is the limit with Klopp, I think. Soccer is kind of in that cool position where wages kind of don't matter when you're winning. Like contracts, eventually it's more people want to play more. That kind of gets in the way of more than anything. So I think you're right. Sky's the limit there. Tyler, Andy, you guys got any big thoughts on Liverpool and the title?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say the biggest thing for me is the change that Klopp has made since he's kind of walked into this side, right? I mean, you look at the team from the 2015-2016 season when he first took over, and I mean, I think we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but I mean, the best player that they had was Coutinho, and he's not even there anymore. And then now you have stars like Virgil van Dijk, you have Trent Alexander-Arnold. That front three is absolutely amazing. But the biggest thing is, I mean, that culture he's just changed there has been absolutely fantastic. The players play for him. They play for the fans. He shows up. He supports them as well. And he's right on the front lines with them. And it's just exciting to see. And, it's making the English title race between United and Liverpool a lot tighter, which is exciting. That was Liverpool's 19th title. If you include, all the different titles from beforehand, United have 20. So Liverpool have the team to keep going and to get that 20th title and eventually catch United. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, the most impressive thing that stands out to me about Liverpool is the consistency, right? I mean, last year too, look at their total points. If it wasn't for Manchester City's crazy season, it might have been number 2 this year. And Liverpool was able to replicate what they did last year. And that was really crazy to me because I didn't think that was going to be the case. Moving forward, I don't see it slowing down. I mean, I really don't see it slowing down at all. I think Liverpool is going to be very tough to compete with, not only next year, but over the course of the next 5 years, and really as long as they have Klopp. I know you guys both touched on Jurgen Klopp. There's no question about it. What he's done over the last few years for Liverpool is incredibly impactful, and I do believe strongly that as long as he's there, those trophies aren't going to stop coming. I don't think it's just going to be Premier League. You're going to see them compete on the international and UEFA level as well.
Definitely.
I think
Intercontinental.
one of the interesting too is that it's going to be interesting to see Liverpool's reaction next season. Now that they're the champions, how are they going to react? Are they going to grind down and make sure that they still have, because teams are going to be coming for them. So it's going to be interesting to see the mentality that Klopp's able to foster for that team to see how they're going to segue into the 2021 season.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to note not only the difference in what happens when certain people are in the squads, like Firmino. How good has Firmino been for Klopp over the last 3 years? Like, he is a foundational, I believe in what you're telling me, up-front striker who plays like an attacking midfielder. So I love watching Firmino in the squad. I think it's important that he's there. I think it'll be important for him to stay for their success on the front end. Like Sadio Mane has been great and a great addition to Mo Salah. But I think if you look at where it all started, you got to look at players like Henderson and Firmino. But, even here, look at the squad when Henderson wasn't in it. I think it's important that they have him there because he kind of reminds them of what they're doing. And I think he pushes Klopp's message, on the field when Klopp can't do it. So I think since they have some of these important key players, they're going to be European title contenders every year. Can they knock Bayern off their pedestal and Juve and all these international teams, right? Because the Premier League's tough. They play some of the best teams in Europe week in, week out with a fast-paced league. Whereas Bayern gets to kind of chill sometimes when they're playing Wolfsburg, right? So, so I think it's important, health, stamina of the whole team. The chemistry's there. So, we'll see. But, congrats, Frankie. It's a good feeling. You know, we've
Yeah,
been
that's
telling
for sure.
congrats all these years, and Tyler, congrats all these years, and I don't get congrats. But
We're
so
coming for you next year.
yeah, no, happy for you though, man. That's awesome. Enjoy the moment. I think that's the important thing. But the game that kind of turned it into the championship for you guys was a great game. City,
Oh, yeah.
Chelsea won at Stamford Bridge. The more and more I watch Chelsea, the more and more I become a fan, and I never thought that day would come. So as a West Londoner, it's like forbidden. But I definitely think Pulisic, Captain America, looked great. What are your guys' take on that game?
So for me, just like you said, with Pulisic, being an American, being a younger guy, it's really I guess you get heartwarming to see someone that young, from America, rising on the European stage, the way he is. We haven't really seen anyone do that since like Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan. And we're long overdue for someone that can really put USA on the stage like he is. And even for other players on the team, I mean, Mason Mount, young guy, still making his stamp on the field. The rest of their team, they've just been meshing really well. I know, in the past years they've had some issues with chemistry, and now Frank Lampard, in the season making 0 transfers, taking down literally every single big team in England. It's amazing to see Chelsea back up there.
Definitely. Andy?
I would say the biggest thing for me is, I mean, watching that City Chelsea game, looking at Chelsea, I mean, Chelsea played absolutely amazing. And that's without Timo Werner or Ziyech, I believe that's how you say his name. But without them being in the squad yet, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think how good Chelsea can be next season and the promise that they have. They have all their youngsters. They have very promising talent with Mason Mount. But now you're going to see a little bit of competition with Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner. Chelsea could set up with a 2-striker set. So, I mean, it's interesting to see how they're going to play next season. I am really excited about that. But, I mean, you look at that game, and Chelsea played fantastic the whole time. Mason Mount, complete engine tray. He was all over the field. I'm sure if you looked at a heat map, he was from end to end, box to box the entire time. Created a couple good chances as well. And then also, I mean, you got on the flip side, when you look at City, I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, that free kick is absolutely fantastic. I do think Kepa could have dove a little bit more. He didn't really extend his arms as much, but he also kind of accepted defeat on that one, which I think is a little bit fair. I mean, KDB, he's been on fire this whole season. I think he broke the double digits for assists and goals this season, which is one of the first for him. So, I mean, it just shows he's a top class player, arguably one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder in the world right now. Absolutely fantastic. But I think the interesting thing about City is Fernandinho, it just looks so uncomfortable as a center back. I mean, he really is a whole midfielder. And, he got that red card, of course, or the double yellow, sorry. But I just think that City really need another center back. And I know there's kind of a little bit of rumors of players that they might be getting, but Fernandinho just as a center back, I feel like it's not cutting it for City. If they're going to make some title contending runs, they're going to need another strong center half in order to support that team.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Fernandinho looking uncomfortable at center back. I think Pulisic is probably sending Mindy a nice text message, nice thank you, flowers or something, man, because I mean that was pretty bad for Mindy, but it was awesome to see Pulisic work the quality and show off the speed and capability that he has to get that goal. That was incredible to see. I mean, for me, Chelsea is they're hard not to root for. I mean, I love Frank Lampard. He's always someone I've been a fan of, and to see him come up from the youth of Chelsea and become their senior manager and be successful, I mean, that's just a fairy tale story in sports. And what he's done with their youth academy is revolutionary. On top of, like, I know Andy touched on Timo Werner coming in and things like that, what their future looks like. They could be back in contention for it. As much as I said Liverpool is going to be difficult to contend with, I think when you look down the road, Chelsea, if they continue to manage things right, they could be right up there. And it could really start to get competitive all over again. And in terms of places in the team, right, Andy, you mentioned Timo Werner and playing less second striker or being able to compete with Tammy Abraham. As much as I've seen him play at Leipzig and the impact that he's had there, he can really play anywhere up at the top. We were looking at a heat map not long ago, and he actually spends a lot more time on the left side than people imagine. And I can attest to that watching him. So I think Pulisic is going to have to continue to prove himself to earn his spot in the team with people like Ziyech and Timo coming in on top of other rumors that are going on right now. Chelsea seems to be the only team that's rumored to be getting all these players. We'll see what actually happens when July opens up. But I think the interesting part, I mean, that game was just fun to watch in general. And Man City didn't play bad. I mean, Man City was playing well. And that speaks volumes to how well Chelsea actually played. Because they held down the fort. They looked like Chelsea that was back when they were winning championship games. That's the level of caliber that they were playing, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There were a couple moments that looked like FIFA, where it's like, what is happening? VAR is coming in. What's going on? Is that a goal? Is it not? Anytime you have those kind of games, regardless of who you support, it's so fun to watch, and that's what defines the sport. And I'm really glad that Chelsea pulled it off, not only for defeating Man City, but for this man Frankie here, that was what catapulted his team to what we talked about with their championship earlier. And I mean, it was just a fun game to watch. And I think moving forward, Chelsea's got a strong future, and City's got a couple adjustments that they got to make. Obviously, depending on some other things that are going on with their locker room and potential. So there's a lot that could change coming up here in the next couple of years.
I think Chelsea is the team of London. They're going to be the team of London for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Like, I get it. Spurs, they got money. They got a great coach. But right now, I just don't think anyone's going to stop Lampard in his mission. It's early in the mission, and it's greatly successful. Growing up, couldn't stand Chelsea. Still don't really like rooting for him. Wasn't even a Lampard fan. I respected him, but didn't really appreciate. I was more of a Gerrard guy, which makes sense.
My man.
But I don't know. So I'm happy to see the success for them, and they're I wish their fan base was a little loud. They're not. It's a very posh fan base, so you're not gonna hear you're not gonna get the Liverpool type of chaos around it, right? But the Chelsea squad is nice. England's so high on Mason Mount. That's all they talk about, and it's good for them to have that in that Chelsea squad. I think as we get into the off season, we kind of get into more podcasts, we'll have a nice in-depth maybe Chelsea preview on what next year looks like. But I think it's good to see Pulisic finish like that in the Premier League. It was hardest for him to get his feet wet early on, but he's been killing it. 7 and 17 Premier League games. So, it's great. Frankie kind of touched base on. I think the finish was big for me because I don't think Ederson's that good of a goalie, quite honestly. But I thought he played the angle right, and Pulisic still just made it work. Mendy, that was rough. No way around that. But, KDB arguably, to me, is probably the best. You can't tell me another all-around midfielder, especially on the attacking half. People love Conte, and they talk up Conte a lot, but no one's doing what KDB's doing all the time. So I think you're right, Tyler. City played great. They did not have a bad game, but it just speaks volumes of what Chelsea's got going on. They're young, fun to watch. They're going to be fun to watch. Turmoil's going to happen, especially with everything going on. They need a back. They need another fullback, and they definitely need a center half. I don't know which wing they choose to replace, especially with some of the rumors going on out there, which we'll get into, probably soon. But they're a few pieces away from being a complete team. And so let's see what happens. But Andy, let's move on to your team, United, 3-0. Martial finally gets a hat trick. Happy for him. Didn't look like I thought he would when he got the hat trick. It looked more like he was relieved. I thought he'd be going crazy, but there's no fans, so it's hard to make that call, that judgment call. But yeah, 3-0 win over the Blades. And it's a European fight there. You got City potentially getting banned. You have Wolves, Sheffield, and United all in the mix there for your Europa and Champions League. So it's crazy kind of what's going on below Chelsea. What are your thoughts on that game, Andy?
I gotta say, I mean, I really expected Sheffield to have a much better team or no, a much better showing in that match. But I mean, the match before that, I know they kind of struggled a little bit with that unlucky VAR call. And then, I mean, I wouldn't even say unlucky. That was just the wrong call back then.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of shook their confidence a little bit. But it's interesting because McGoldrick and Moosehead were very, very quiet that game. Moosehead, I mean, is their leading goal scorer with 5 goals on the season, which isn't a lot, but they just didn't really have that creativity to kind of go at United. And I will say, too, that having Pogba and Fernandes finally have that connection in this game was absolutely fantastic to see. As a Man U fan, I mean, it's really nice because when you look at us on paper, we had like kind of a 2 holding midfielder set, with Matic and Pogba back there, and then you had Bruno Fernandes playing in front of them. But it was more of like Matic was playing a little bit farther back, and Pogba was like kind of in more of a central midfielder role, so slightly behind Bruno Fernandes. And I mean, it was really good to see because Matic is definitely a stronger holding midfielder, and he definitely controls the play and likes to stay back there, whereas Pogba obviously likes to go up and kind of join the attack with Bruno. And I think the creativity of that game was fantastic, having Greenwood on the right side, crossing it into the left field. He's kind of one of those players like Mason Mount where he has that engine trait constantly going. Martial definitely looked good. He's kind of, for me, I'm kind of have mixed feelings about Martial at striker. He has the ability to score the goals, but sometimes he kind of doesn't read the defense as well as he could, and is not really that great of a holding player to let Rashford or Greenwood go down the wing. But positive result from United. We definitely needed that. It was a huge game, put some gap in between us and Wolves, and looking forward to the next game in midweek.
Yeah, definitely. Tyler, Frank, you guys got any big insight on this game? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off a little bit. I thought it was another interesting game to watch. I thought it was a little bit of Sheffield not playing up to their level, and Man U taking advantage of that, quite frankly. But man, you hit it on the head. Bruno and Pogba are just fun to watch together. Absolutely just fun to watch. I mean, regardless of who you support, that duo is something special. If I were a Man U fan, I would be very excited. It's interesting that you touched on Matic like you did. I thought he had a really good game too. I think when he was at Chelsea, he was in more of a holding defensive mid role. Conte took that over, and he didn't really have anywhere to go. It's been a little awkward for him at Man U, but I think yesterday he really came together in that role. I think it's going to be interesting moving forward with Matic and McTominay coming up too. What exactly Manchester United does to complete that midfield, whether they're going to roll with Matic more, whether they're going to give McTominay more time, or if Fred's ever going to get into the mix. I think it's very interesting. But Bruno and Pogba lock that midfield down. The front three were great, right? I actually think Rashford probably could have finished a couple more chances, but it is what it is. Martial, the hat trick, that was awesome to see. It's about time, kind of a thing. I think you're right, Cam. When you hit on the head, he probably felt a little bit of a sense of relief. And now the question is going to be, how does Martial respond? Because what everyone wants to see in Manchester is a consistent goal-scoring, finishing striker. Can Martial bring that to the table? We don't know. Is the hat trick going to be what puts him over the edge to do that? I'm not sure, but I tell you what, Greenwood, you said he's an engine trait. Every time he got the ball, man, he was shooting at that goal. He was the hungriest player on the field when it comes to the offense. I absolutely loved it. I think that front three could develop into something really special if that's what they keep. If there's another direction they go, I don't know. But I think the big question around United is going to be what happens with Martial moving forward, and is he going to be something that is solid enough and consistent enough to do it for you guys, to be quite simple. But it was good to see them pull off that victory. I feel a little bit for Sheffield. I know they're a little bit of a defensive team, and they got down pretty early. They're kind of having one of those seasons where it's like, wow, they get promoted, and here they are. They're doing well. COVID happens, and their momentum's gone, and now their strength of schedule is very high. I don't see too much more coming out of Sheffield in the Premier League. I know we're going to talk about the FA Cup here soon, but I think Sheffield's got a big hurdle to get over to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, United had 68% percentage in that game, and that's far too low for a team like Sheffield to be able to keep. United is generally not that much of a possession team when you think about it, and for them to have that much possession is definitely alarming when you're a Sheffield team, especially with them being as defensive as they are. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they have a really tough schedule, but it'll be interesting to see how they do next season as well. I know it's kind of too early to segue into the next season, but I would like to see them finish, pretty high up there. Obviously, I don't want them to take my spot, but we'll be interested to see how they do.
Yeah. Frankie?
If going from a neutral standpoint, the Sheffield performance was pretty disappointing. Because they've been the main underdog this season. So seeing them not really perform to others' expectations was a bit of a letdown. But then seeing how Man U performed was pretty great to see. I love players like Bruno who are like long shot taking, attacking mids, very creative. Doing flare passes, things like that. And then seeing a lot of their youth players like Greenwood, just like you said, hungry for goals. Wan-Bissaka, who's really renowned for his defensive abilities, made an amazing, great offensive play to get that assist from Martial. So I love seeing things like that. From a Liverpool fan standpoint, a little concerning seeing what Man U could turn into next year. There's a few transfer rumors of maybe a couple players they might bring in next season to go on top of what they got going on right now. They could be one of those other teams that are right up there contending for the title. So I'm really glad that they are turning into a more consistent game-winning team. It's the most competitive league in the world, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. If I could piggyback one thing too, Frankie, you mentioned Bruno's creativity and his flare passing and all that. I think Man U as a whole looked really fluid and smooth. It reminded me a lot of kind of how Dortmund plays. I've seen a lot of Dortmund games, and they do a lot of creativity in the offensive third and one-touch passing, and you saw a lot of that. I think the best example was the buildup of their, I think it was their third goal that they scored. That buildup was awesome. And even the one where Rashford, he missed that volley. I mean, the touch passing, they pulled the center back right out of position and had him wide open. If they continue to do that and continue to develop through that, absolutely. If I were a Liverpool fan, I'd be concerned. I think both Man U and Chelsea are going to be up and coming.
Yeah.
It's funny because United and Chelsea are actually pretty similar in that sense, right? Both of them have relatively young teams. We were both kind of hurting with injuries, the break definitely did teams like Chelsea and Man United a pretty big favor by allowing us to get back to full strength. And it's funny you mentioned the whole Dortmund thing because they have that creativity, and one of the biggest rumors with United right now is obviously Jadon Sancho. So if they're able to play with that same type of style and they're able to really adopt him coming into the team, if they were to get him, that would be fantastic. But obviously that's just a rumor at this point. So we'll have to wait and see if that's actually official.
Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of all of you, I think the creativity you mentioned, it was kind of Liverpool-esque, if you ask me, on the front three side of things. The fluidity of United looked great. I personally cannot stand United, and I'm happy to see them back. You know what I mean? Because you want this competition. We don't watch the Premier League for Liverpool to walk away with 28 points ahead. That's not why we watch it. So, I think it's great, not only for United and the fan base, but to see the academy players just like Chelsea coming through. You have the transfer talk around United again. All the bad cloud Pogba talk is kind of already diminished. Bruno changed the team before the suspension and the lockdown. So seeing Pogba healthy, playing with him is amazing. Seeing Martial on the score sheet like that is great for them. It's going to continue with speculation talks of is he performing to the right level? Like you said, Tyler, I think he doesn't get enough 6-yard box goals, and he got a few that game. So, Wan-Bissaka, I can't stop talking about him. Like, personally, I think Wan-Bissaka is the reason United are even in the topic for European competition right now, because just how he's handled the whole season with all the adversity. Fred played an important role. So when you kind of talk about who's going to be in the team next year, the options are endless. And some people are going to be left out who put on when they needed them this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the depth of United, I think, over the next few years. Who will be there. I think Ole Gunnar's the right guy right now. I know he gets a lot of flack because he's the United coach. But I think I like what he's done personally. Out wide, I think I like Greenwood. Mason Greenwood had a great game. But Pogba, Bruno is the topic of discussion. It's going to continue to be that way. If United can kind of get up into maybe third in the league, Liverpool need to fret for next year because they're a piece or two away from being the team of the North again. So if it continues, right, it's kind of all
I
based.
also think it's worth noting too that Pogba is still not for sure going to
Yeah.
stay at United. I don't think, and I think as much as I definitely don't want him to leave because I think that him and Fernandez are definitely the future of our club and they can do great things at United. It is important to note that Pogba has been in the limelight for wanting to leave United. His agent's been very vocal about it too. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up playing out. But he is definitely still not committed to United for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, another potential worry for you guys. I feel like a scapegoat who's second to Pogba seems to be De Gea a lot of
Yeah.
times. So I think his situation next season, especially with Dean Henderson really performing this season, could be something to keep an eye on too. Because I feel like Henderson would be ready to take on the mantle as the number one at Man U, but I wouldn't quite say De Gea is necessarily ready to give it up. And hopefully he feels the same way and continues to hold down the team. He didn't really get much of an opportunity to show out that against Sheffield last game, but he's got the rest of the season to still secure a spot.
Definitely, and I think that's important to note with Sheffield. Henderson didn't play because he can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's in his clause. He can't play against United. So kind of, I don't like that. I think it's
Yeah.
for the sport. But I get why they do it, and I think Sheffield should be happy with whatever comes from the end of the season.
Yeah.
They've had a good season. If they don't win another game, I think that's okay. I think it's for their momentum, but I think they, financially as a club, you got to be happy with what's happened. So, they're not Norwich, so they're not, it's not an up and down situation where it's going to affect the infrastructure. You got to kind of take the points and go, and you got to understand too that Henderson's not going to be there next year, so they need to start looking for pieces and. For that puzzle, because there's no way United's letting him stay on loan for another full year. I just don't see it with the way he's playing, the amount of clean sheets he has, and that defense, which is amazing, of course. But I think that United have a lot to look forward to. Sheffield can be happy with status quo, but we have a few teams that are in the relegation battle that aren't, who maybe aren't usually in this type of infrastructure problem, like Bournemouth took another loss over the weekend, 1-0 to Wolves. You have Villa got a tie. They tied Newcastle 1-1. And you have Burnley beating Watford 1-0 in a game where, maybe Watford let that get away. But what do you guys think kind of on the update on the bottom half of the table?
Bottom half, Arsenal just snuck out of it barely this last game, which is not something that should ever be said, really, for a Big Six team. Other teams that are still down there. Everton is also a pretty decent team that I feel like shouldn't be down there, especially with some of the people they brought in. That's pretty disappointing. They have Ancelotti managing them.
I think that's going to. I think next year Everton's a threat.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then, all at bottom, Norwich, I don't think that, they really got no hope getting out of relegation in my books. And like you said, Watford and West Ham, they're still right on the cusp of being down there in the bottom three. Villa and Bournemouth. I feel like Villa, out of those three, I'll take out Norwich, but as far as between them and Bournemouth, I feel like they have the best chance of getting out of relegation. Bournemouth, I think we touched on it last podcast, Cam, without Frazier for the rest of the season, I think Bournemouth is going to have some trouble, especially in the final third. Watford, I've not really seen much hunger out of them. They only have 6 wins this entire season. West
Ham. They spent so much money.
Yeah, they spent a lot, and that's probably got to be a bit demoralizing to them too. And West Ham, I feel like they could probably hold on. So maybe Watford drops and Villa gets up. That's probably one of my guesses. And then as far as teams that are ending in the bottom half for the season, who I could see turning things around next season, my favorite would be Newcastle United. Seeing what they could turn into. It's one of those other situations where the sky's the limit, and we could go on for a whole another entire episode, I'm sure, of potentially what their team could look like next season.
Depends if it comes through. It still has to go through yet.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a lot of cards at play there.
Mm-hmm.
Devil's
For sure.
advocate.
I would say, man, Villa. I don't think Villa are going to be able to pull out of the relegation battle because unfortunately they're too reliant on Grealish, playmaking, getting the ball out there. But clubs are getting smart and they're man marking him. They're doubling him up. I think Villa actually this morning they tried something a little bit interesting. They tried to move Grealish into a bit more of an attacking role against Wolves. That way he was kind of more of a central attacking midfielder to hopefully give him more outlets so we can create some passes out to the wings. But I mean, unfortunately, he's just too strong on the wing because he's got so much more space to make things happen. And I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot in terms of that first half. But I mean, obviously Wolves are a good team, so it definitely makes sense. But Aston Villa, I mean, they kind of need a little bit of work to do, and they can't just solely rely on Grealish. So, and I have a feeling Grealish probably won't be there next season. But I think Villa have a little bit of work to do. I agree with you guys on Bournemouth. Obviously, Fraser being out doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But I mean, Watford are one of those clubs that they spend money on quite a bit of players. They haven't really found their niche, so I can still see them losing battles, and it's a pretty tight race down there at the bottom.
Yeah, I love it. I think when I first came on and had the intro, right, I talked about culture and art of soccer. The competition is unreal, right? No other sport, at least that we have here, has quite the same promotion relegation system. You've got multiple battles going on in the same table, not only for the championship, but for UEFA Champions League, for Europa, for relegation. I think that's crazy, and all of them are really competitive races right now. When you look at the bottom of the table, I think you're right. I think Villa is in an interesting situation because not only if they get relegated, if they lose Grealish too, that's going to hurt. It's going to be tough. He's obviously not going to want to be there if they're relegated. Bournemouth with Fraser, like you said, Frankie, they're in a tough position. I agree. I think Norwich is definitely done. I do think Bournemouth will get relegated, and then I think the battle is going to come down between Villa, West Ham, and Watford. If I had to pick a team out of those three that I just mentioned that I would be rooting for, or that would be probably the safest, I would probably pick West Ham. That's just a gut feeling. I'd like to see them stay in the Premier League. I think that they've got some talent on the team that can still be developed. I forget his name. They bought someone from Frankfurt last summer, who Holland. No, not Holland. What's the guy's name? At any rate, he plays striker / right mid. He's really good. I think he could develop. And I really like West Ham down there. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then as you move up the table in the middle, Everton and Newcastle stand out to me. I like Everton. They're a classic team in the Premier League. I don't like seeing them that far down in 12th. I'd rather see them closer to 7th or 8th. But I think those top 6, top 8 teams are getting more and more competitive every year. So it's kind of hard to stay there. And then Newcastle, like you said, Frankie, depending on what happens there, if that goes through, that's going to be an entire episode for sure because there's just so much speculation around it. We don't want to spend too much time speculating, but if that does go through, the sky is the limit. And I just think it's really interesting from top to bottom, the English Premier League, and that's why it's the best league of the best.
Definitely. I think when you look at the relegation battle, Norwich is gone. Me and Frankie kind of made some predictions last episode. I'm already kind of not feeling my predictions are the best. So, I really don't. After watching Villa again today, not attacking at all. They look bad. They know Grealish is leaving. They know they're going to get that money to rebuild the infrastructure. Part of me, Tyrone Mings is going to leave. If they get relegated, it's going to be kind of chaos at Villa. They could be like Middlesbrough, who's right now fighting in the relegation, battle. So, in the league below. So I don't know what it's going to do to them, but I definitely think that there's a good chance that they could drop. I kind of disagree with the Watford thing, though. I think Watford has spent a lot of money. But they have that fight. They always kind of have that fight in them to pull it out. They're in the battle every year. So, you know what I mean? Like, they know what to expect going in.
Yeah.
West Ham, David Moyes came out and said it's a harder job this year than it was last year to save them. So, I don't know. I think he's lucky that everyone's losing at the bottom right now. No one's pulling away with points. Brighton got a win over, who'd they be? Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to take something like that where a team's just going to get points where they shouldn't because at the bottom right now, no one's winning. And there's a big gap between about the teams in 16th to the teams in 12th. You know, because when you're talking about Newcastle, Everton sitting in 12th and Palace in that mix, there's really only like I don't know. The point table spread isn't a lot, but the talent level seems to be, you know.
Yeah.
So I just think that battle at the bottom is going to come down to the last weekend.
And it was Sebastian Haller was the player that I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I had just Googled it. I forgot to mention that right away. Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. How much do you think Jack Grealish is worth?
80 million. He's worth every penny.
You think so? Oh man, that's the rumor of the tag right now is 80 million, and I don't know if
we're talking like outside of all the COVID mess that's been going on. I think that'd be a pretty fair price tag because he's a pretty promising, young, result performing attacking mid slash outside mid.
Jack?
20.
I'm pretty sure he's like 23. Yeah. I mean, he's young. He's got a good 7-6 years in him, performing at a top level.
That's English.
But through, post COVID, I guess still during COVID pandemic, it's hard to say because not many transfers have really been going on. It's just been a lot of speculation, But I'd say at least 40 mil, during all this. I'd say he's worth it because even if someone does buy him during this time, he's still going to perform for them after that. So
I watch a lot of bottom table games. Honestly, like I watch a lot. I watch every game as much as I can. Like I'm not only watching Spurs play. So I watching what Grealish does to Villa, who a team who shouldn't even be in the Premier League, is unreal. Like he literally keeps them in games, and their defense is awful. I think he's the best midfielder, like on the left side in England, like English, I should say. I think he's got a big price tag where anyone's going to buy him. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes to China for money. You know what I mean? He kind of has that, I don't know, like Pretty Boy Floyd mentality, kind of where it looks like, where like he's chasing money. So, I don't know where he goes. I think if United buys him, it's going to be an $80 million price tag because Birmingham's just going to make him pay, but they don't want to lose him, but he's going to go. So for what cost? I think it's kind of up in the air, but I'd want Grealish on any team I start. Like if I were to start it, if I'm making a team, he's on it. That's how good. He's just good.
I don't know. 80 million is a little high for me.
Yeah.
And here's why. Thiago has been rumored to being leaving Bayern Munich over the last few days, and the price tag that we have put on him, at least that I have seen, is 80 million. I don't care how young Grealish is. I just cannot put the same price tag on Grealish that's going on Thiago. I think 60 is probably more realistic. I also think it's important, Frankie, that you mentioned the COVID situation going on. We're in a situation in the marketplace. I don't think anyone knows any price for anybody right now. It's just an awkward situation financially for all clubs, and all the executives at that level have to kind of identify what their budgets look like, what the predictions look like, and what their cost analysis looks like before they can really determine how much they have room to spend. And if you are going to spend 80 million, is it going to be on Grealish? It really depends on the situation. But I don't know that I'm ready to go that high for him quite yet. I do agree. I think he's incredibly impactful for Villa. But I don't know.
That's the only place we've seen him.
Right. And 80 million's, I don't know. 80 million's a lot.
And
again,
too.
Yeah. I think if he were to be more consistent, if he were to find a way to keep Villa from being relegated and it were to be kind of a lone wolf effort, then I think you could make the argument for it a little bit more. But we'll have to wait for the end of the season for that. I think it would take a team that really, really is looking for not a desperate midfield or left side situation, but really looking to fill a gap to pay that high of a price for Grealish, to be honest with you. But that doesn't mean it won't be done. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and it's crazy. But I think it's as we open up in the transfer window and talk about that more, Grealish will definitely be someone we are keeping tabs on.
Definitely. I think once we get into the offseason and it all kind of ramps up and kicks off, we're going to see not only his real price point, we're going to see who's really interested in him. Because United might be looking at the last few games going, we actually don't need him. So, It just depends, especially with COVID and the brand, right? Do you really want to spend 80 million when you're laying off employees? Like, you got to protect your brand too as a company. So we'll see where it goes. But so bottom half, pretty boring games, I think, overall in the week for the bottom half, other than Brighton beating Arsenal. Let's go ahead and move into predictions. You guys okay with that? FA Cup predictions?
Oh yeah.
Sure. Let's go ahead.
Do it.
Let's go ahead and start with United Norwich. Just quick. Let's go ahead and do quick score, and if it's even gonna be close.
All right, I'll start with that one. I think it'll be 1-0 United. I think with them playing their starting team earlier in the week and Wednesday, I think they're going to kind of go with a little bit more of a couple of their bench players in order to play this game. So I think that the creativity might lack a little bit, and we might see some starters, but I think for the most part, we'll see a little bit of a different team that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to run. I still think that they'll beat Norwich, but I think it'll only be a 1-0 win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. I think it's gonna be I'm gonna go with 2-1. Man U in favor. Like you said, I think I agree with Man U maybe throwing in some other players in there that aren't quite in their first string team. But then I feel like this could be something that Norwich might fight for to try to get some funds out of for next season once they drop down. So I like some of their players like Cantwell, like I mentioned last episode, Cam. Timo Pukki is another player that can pull out some good results. Not so much that we've seen lately, but they could still pull one. I think if Man U puts a couple of non-first string players on the defense.
Pukki had such a really good start at the beginning of the season, and then it's just like after the first 5 to 6 games, it really started to fall by the wayside. But you really thought Norwich was actually going to make it a little bit higher up in the table than where they did.
Like they were almost looking like what Sheffield turned into.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point you make, Frankie, with Norwich trying to pull off some funds and maybe try to make something out of this season, right? If they were to take out United in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, that's a win for them. But I don't agree. I think United's going to win 3-1, even with a backup squad, B team, whatever you want to say. I just think Norwich is so far down there. I think they're kind of just done. I think they've accepted defeat, and I don't see them beating United. I don't see it being too close unless, like you said, Andy, if the team that United throws out underperforms. But I'm going to go with United 3-1. I feel pretty confident that they're going to move on to the next round.
I don't think it's going to be as goal scoring as maybe I'm more like on the Andy side. It could be 1-0. It could also be 0-0. Like I think if United puts out a B team and Norwich throws out the best they got because they are looking for funds and they're scrapping, it could end a draw with no goals. It could be a very.
I think we'll see Romero this game. I really think we'll see Romero this game.
Yeah. It's going to be on the pitch. I think, there's going to be some people who are just outside that A team that they could play to make sure that they're in the semis. But if Norwich puts out their best effort and United puts out, maybe a half-assed one because it's, the FA Cup and it's just not on their minds, we could see. But, I don't see it being a big goal scoring game. And then we got Chelsea-Leicester. Two teams.
I think they're
gonna push for it.
Yeah,
I
think so
that's
too.
probably the toughest matchup.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think Chelsea's going to pull it up 2-1. I think they're also going to. I think a lot of the top end teams, like Arsenal, City, Chelsea, United, they're going to be kind of a little bit more reserved in the squad selection and probably take a couple more chances and let some younger guys play. So I think Chelsea will still win it 2-1. I mean, Vardy is just a kryptonite to Chelsea, and I have a feeling that Vardy will play again tonight. Vardy always finds a way to score against Chelsea, so I think that I think they're going to score for sure. But I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea against Leicester this week.
Yeah. Frankie, what you got?
I think it's pretty fair, but I think I might go. I think I'm gonna go 1-1. Leicester, they still have some good threats. Like you said, they got Vardy. That man can perform any day when he's drinking 3 Red Bulls. Before a game. They got other players like James Maddison, who's also another similar hot prospect like Grealish. I would say I've seen some similar rumors for him also. I'm a big fan of Yuri Telemans, who's a center mid for them.
He's fantastic.
They got other other players that can perform too, like Pereira, the right back. He does well for
Chilwell.
them. Yeah, Chilwell too, who's another big market price
Rumored to
player.
go to Chelsea.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe he's got something to prove today, or not today, but their game. Chelsea too, just like you said, I think they're gonna throw out some of the youth players, maybe some other players that aren't really quite in the limelight. I really hope Batshuayi gets some playing time. I've always liked him, but it seems like he can't really stick a spot in the team, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say 1-1 for that match.
He should have stayed at Palace.
Yeah.
For playing time. Tyler, what's your predictions?
I think I've been going back and forth on this one a lot. I do think Batman's going to be out of Chelsea after this season, but I think Chelsea's got a lot of momentum coming into this game, and the absolute worst thing for them is to play Leicester City. I think Leicester City could really derail that momentum quickly. I think it really depends on what Frank Lampard does with the lineup and how much he wants to keep that momentum going. But I'm going to go 2-2. Just because I think there's going to be some goals scored in this game. I think there's a lot of talent on the field. I think both teams are going to want to win. And I think it's just going to be a really even match. And it's too tough for me to go one way or the other. But I think I'm going to go 2-2 as my final call.
I think Leicester win. I think the experience in the Leicester squad and maybe Lampard. I don't know, because then again, Chelsea, this is the only title chance they got this year, so that he might throw everything at it,
Yeah, I mean, we can't forget. I mean, Leicester is ahead of them in the table.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't really call them an underdog necessarily.
No, they're definitely not. I think they always fly under the radar when unless they're winning the Premier League, right? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I could see Leicester winning 2-0 and Chelsea not even being in this game, but I hope that's not the case. Because it's the FA Cup and I want to see a good game as well, and I'm starting to root for Chelsea a little bit. I think it's going to finish maybe 2-2 as well. I could see a 2-2 game, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Leicester win 2-0. It does depend on what Lampard does. And then we got who we got? We got
Sheffield, Arsenal.
Yeah.
Another matchup.
And then what's the next one? Newcastle and who?
City.
Yeah, the other one's City, Newcastle.
Okay. Let's talk Arsenal game first. What do you guys think? Tyler?
Sheffield is going to be a good game. I'm telling you, this is the one I'm really excited for because, Sheffield's recent form, they have definitely dipped a little bit, and same thing with Arsenal. And Arsenal's got quite a bit of drama going on. If you've been reading the papers, quite a bit of drama within that culture. So it'll be interesting to see who will play. I think that this is an important game for both clubs because I think that whoever pulls out the win here is definitely able to see a momentum shift. And I think Arsenal probably need it the most because, they're not even making Europa at this current state. So I think it's more important for Arsenal, but I think that Sheffield getting a win here would definitely make the fight between Wolves, United, and Sheffield a lot tighter and a lot more interesting because they need that momentum shift in order for them to bring it back to the Premier League and get back to their winning ways. But I think it's going to be an underdog win. I think Sheffield is going to win 2-0.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've got Sheffield in a dramatic 90th minute game-winning David Luiz own goal. I'm kidding. I do have Sheffield winning 2-1. I don't know if David Luiz is going to be playing or not. I cannot believe they extended his contract.
An extension.
I can't help
right
but
after.
When I see him.
Right
I
after.
know. Oh God.
I don't know. It's good to see Guendouzi and David Luiz on the same side though.
Oh God, they killed them exactly.
Like that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other.
Yeah, that's so great. I don't know what's going on with Arsenal. I remember the days when they had Thierry Henry, Robin van Persie, Cesc Fabregas in the squad. You guys remember Emmanuel Adebayor? Oh my goodness. What and here we are talking about David Luiz getting a contract extension. Like, what is going on? I just don't like the direction that Arsenal's going, to be plain and simple. I'm going with Sheffield 2-1. I do think it's going to be a good game. I do think there might be a dramatic finish. I don't know that it's going to be involving David Luiz with an own goal or a PK or something, but I think that's the game I'm actually most looking forward to watch and see what happens with this, because it's going to define, like you said, Andy, it's important for both teams. If Arsenal wins, that could be a solid turning point for them. Especially if they continue on and maybe even get this trophy. That, like you said, Cam, what would it be like if Arteta gets a trophy? I mean, it's crazy to think about, but what would it be like? Yeah. And then Sheffield, it would be a huge thing for their momentum. I think that they've struggled to gained back that momentum since COVID, and this is a huge opportunity going against the Arsenal team that's arguably in turmoil right now, for them to be able to turn it around. But I got Sheffield 2-1.
The only thing I will kind of go against my prediction a little bit is that Sheffield haven't really found that consistent goal scorer that scores day in, day out. I mean, Moosehead is leading their goals, like I mentioned earlier, with 5 goals on the year. That's not a ton. McGoldrick has been a little bit quiet this season, so I think that's probably the only negative thing in that game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
That point you pretty much made there with consistent goal scorers is what leads me to saying that I think Arsenal's going to pull the win out. I think they're going to get like maybe a 2-1, 3-1, something like that, because they got players like Aubameyang, Lacazette that are probably pretty pissed off with the current state of the club, and they're really gonna have something to prove. Give Aubameyang the ball, no one's gonna catch the man on the field. So I feel like they can really pull out a result more so than Sheffield, just because of the threats and the consistency that they have up top. Yeah, I mean, for Arsenal, I think they lucked out a little bit with the news of Leno's injury. It didn't seem like it's going to be as long as some thought it might have been. But, last match, whoever the goalie is, I think his name's like Martinelli or something similar like that. He came through for them, so hopefully he can pull out another result.
Yeah. Now, on that note, with Martinelli's a striker,
the goalie's got a similar name.
Yeah. My thoughts are, this is a game before the pandemic, right? Before everything going on. Martinelli would have scored a hat trick, and it would have been the topic of discussion of how good he is as a young star. You know what I mean? But with everything going on in Arsenal, I think Frankie's right. I think they win, but it's almost the exact kind of opinion. It's because Sheffield don't have a goal scorer. Like, you can play as much defense as you want, but your offense still isn't good enough to beat a bad Arsenal defense. So, I could see it going 2-0. 2-0 Arsenal. Yeah. I don't think Sheffield get on the board. And that speaks volumes to what they need to do in the offseason. Yeah. But, Arsenal win in turmoil. 2-0.
And that goalie was Martinez.
Yeah. He had a good game. But
he did.
Awful defense, so it doesn't matter. All right.
If you keep Luis out of it, you got some hope.
You know what, though? I think Arteta understands that he's going to buy into him, and he's going to at least play for him, and there's going to be red cards involved. That's why you get a 1-year contract. But I think Luis at least can make something happen as much as he will let you down.
Yeah.
At least, I don't know, he's got some flair to him. I don't know. I get it. I get why they need him right now, but... Yeah. They don't.
He kind of has a couple qualities similar to Maguire, in the sense that as a center back, he kind of pushes up and pushes the team forward a little bit by driving a little bit towards the midfield. So he does have those qualities, and I think that is positive from a good center half. It's just his decision making is just been pretty poor of recent years, and I think that's just really what it comes down to. And as a center back, those key decisions are game changing moves.
Yeah, and from a neutral standpoint, it's been disappointing for me looking at some of the players that Arsenal brought in, like I think we talked about the other day, like Socrates as a defender. I really had high hopes for him coming in. I really wish I could have seen more of Rob Holding playing for them, because it seems like he's one of those guys that, like Guendouzi, really wants to play for the Gunner badge. It's unfortunate, players like him and also Callum Chambers, that they can't really get that spot in the club to really show what they have.
At least Pepe's look positive.
For the most part, yeah. He's with that price tag, he's under the spotlight a lot. But I mean, as far as overall goal assists that he's brought, really not that bad. So I like him. He's very shifty on the ball. He dribbled past Van Dijk, so I give him props for that. But they have some promise for next season.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think last game here we got Newcastle City. I think City wants this title. There's no They got a ban upcoming. It's probably happening. So I think they want this title. They want to take something away from the season, being that they still have a good season. I think City blow them out the water, honestly. Even with the B team, potentially 3-4-1, maybe 3-0.
Yeah, I'm seeing like a 4-0, something like that. I mean, I don't see much hope for Newcastle. I mean, maybe Joelinton can pull out another goal, but if they've got one guy that's up top that's not really performing, then I don't see much going on for them.
Yeah, I got it 4-0 too. And in my experience with Pep, not just in a situation where he wants to win a trophy, but he doesn't like to lose at all, period. And after what just happened against Chelsea, I think he's going to make an example out of Newcastle. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if it's going to be a full B team, to be honest with you. I think he's going to come out and absolutely lay down the can.
Is there even really a B team with the players they have?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's ridiculous, the depth that they have. I think it's going to be 4-0. I think it could even be 5-0. I don't see Pep letting up at all against Newcastle, and I feel bad for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be bad. I don't want it to be bad because I think it's important, though, that it is bad for Newcastle. If you're going to get bought, you need to understand how far away you are from a title. Like, you're not even close, and it's going to take work. And, I think it's important that if Newcastle gets bought, that they look back and say, oh, look, we got to the quarterfinal with what we had, but we still have miles to go.
So. The problem with Newcastle is, I mean, they made a record signing with Almiron, and Almiron just hasn't had the consistent form to be able to make an impact on the game. And it's tough for him too because he's very quick, he's agile, he's definitely a good playmaker. He's a decent goal scorer, but the problem with him is that he doesn't have the build, the strength to really hold off some defenders and make plays happen. It's kind of similar to a Fred situation at United, where Fred's got that good technical ability and he can make plays happen, but him being in the midfield and just not being strong enough to kind of hold off players is definitely an issue. And I think that's where kind of Newcastle are falling short. They need their talisman to kind of step up and get some goals, and it just hasn't really happened for them. So City, I think, will blow it out of the water.
I think it's important to note, too, the FA Cup's not all that's left for City. They're currently up 2-1 against Real Madrid in Champions League, which is going to resume in August. So I don't think the FA Cup is end-all, be-all for them this season, but I do think it's important that Pep's going to want it. But they still got Champions League to look forward to as well.
Yeah.
Almiron, I think over the past 90 days, of soccer, he looks better than when he first got there. He actually, I think, has the most yards or most kilometers ran of any Premier League player. So he's putting in work at Newcastle, but I think you're right, Mook. He just didn't have the size, and we'll see where it goes. But if they get bought, with the whole buy-in, who knows if he's even in the squad or if he's even there. So, we'll see.
He's running around, but he's running. I'm sure the heat map is crazy for him, similar to Timo Werner. Yeah. But the problem is, even when he has the ball, there's just not a lot there. He's doing very basic linking play. I mean, he's making good runs, but he just falls a little bit short. And I think right now they need someone to be reliable.
Joe Linton has like one goal in the past, 6 months. So
yeah.
He finally broke that and got the monkey off his back, a little bit, finally getting that goal. So it was good.
Yeah, but still going to be pretty close. I think it's great to have everyone on here. Next weekend's going to be fun. We're going to have lots to talk about. We'll kind of see what happens I think most of the games next week are towards the back half of the calendar. So hopefully we have something fresh on our mind. Next week they're all throughout the week. So Brighton United, if Brighton can pull a point away from United, really will get them out of the relegation talk. You got Arsenal. Part of me hopes Norwich beats Arsenal. And then West Ham Chelsea, so another relegation game that's going to be very tough for West Ham to pull points out of. Newcastle, Bournemouth might be able to get a point or two. So I think we're going to have some good topics next week. I appreciate you all. It's been fun. And everyone enjoy the FA Cup games this weekend, okay?
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Thank you. Window opens up and 1.
Yeah.
Looking forward to more.
You never walk alone. Yeah, right.
Congratulations, Frankie.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to next season for sure. Can't wait. It's going to be a good one.
All right.
All right.